Hi, I am Fernando Campos and today I am going to do a very special experiment. But before we do that, first we need to say why is it important this experiment or what is its purpose. So let's go. First, this experiment consists on building or making an insect collector device so that later we can evaluate, analyze, or study the amount or population of nocturnal insects in my area, the area that I am now, to see if that type of insects can cause human health hazards that can threaten our health, and to know how to protect ourselves from the diseases that type of insects can cause to us. The reason we do this experiment is because we live in a world with many different types and species of insects. There are millions of insects in this planet, and many of them can cause many diseases to the human body, to us. So it's important to know the type of insects that live in the area that we commonly stay, like in our houses, our garden, and like that, to know if that type of insects that live in our garden have a potential to cause a human disease, and to know how to protect ourselves from that type of disease. Now I will do my hypothesis of the experiment. So my hypothesis is that one of the insect collectors, yes, because I have to do 4 different insect collectors and each one with different characteristics, so we can test them and see what insect collector captured or tracked more insects. But I think that the most probable insect collector that will trap more insects will be the collector that will have the flashlight on and the half full water. I think that collector will have more probabilities to capture the more or the many amount of insects as possible. And also I think that the collectors will not only collect insects. I think that some microorganisms will get in that collectors too, and it will not just trap insects. So that is my hypothesis. Now let's see the list of materials for the experiment. So for this experiment we need 4 plastic bottles, 4 mouth-wide jars, we need this little magnifying glass, black construction paper, 2 flashlights, scissors, tape, a watch to see how much the insects were in the collectors, this etymology book, and at last this little marker. Now I'll do the elaboration process for the 4 insect collectors. Let's go. So the first thing we need to do to make the insect collector devices, we need to order these plastic bottles and then cut them in the top and in the bottom and leave them like this. And here, as you can see, the cut parts. And now I will proceed to cut the other 3 plastic bottles. The second step is to cover the plastic cylinder with the black construction paper. And for that, first you need to measure and cut the black construction paper to cover the plastic cylinder. And we need to cover it like this. And this is the final product, and the same process with the rest of the 3 plastic cylinders. So now already we have the 4 plastic cylinders with their own black cover, each one of them. And now the next step is to label and to put on it the next arrangement. So this is with no light and with no water. This is with water and with light. This is with no water but with light. And this is only with the water. So now we are in the test part of this whole experiment. As you can see, here are all the containers set up in their own spot, ready to be tested and to attract the insects. And as you can see, this is the dry with no flashlight. This is the wet but with no flashlight. This is the dry but with no. This is the dry with flashlight, and this is the wet with the flashlight. So now let's wait for 1 hour to see the results. So here it is, the chart and the graph with the results of the experiment. And as you can see, only 2 containers trap insects. That were the wet container with no flashlight and the wet container but with flashlight. And they only trap 1 insect. So that was a little sad and disappointing for me, because I thought they would trap more insects. But well, it doesn't matter. This proves that in the area that I am now, in my house, there is no high density of population of nocturnal insects. Now it's time for the conclusions of this experiment. So for the conclusion of this experiment, first I need to show you the 4 jars of the experiment and show you the results of each one of them. So the jar that I am showing to you now is the wet jar with the flashlight on, and as you can see, there is a little ant in there with a lot of dirt under it. In this other jar is the wet jar but with no flashlight, and as you can see, there is also a little ant in there with the dirt. This third jar is the dry jar but with the flashlight, and as you can see there is a lot of dirt all around it, and I think that in that dirt there are a lot of microorganisms. So I think that my hypothesis was right in that aspect. And this final jar is the jar dry with no flashlight, and as you can see there is a lot of dirt with the microorganisms in it. So my conclusion is that in the area of my house that I am now, there is a not very high density population of nocturnal insects, as I already said before. But also I think it depends on the location where the insect collection devices are, because some type of insects can be in one part of your garden and other type of insects can be in another part of your garden. So I think that is a variable you have to consider. So my hypotheses were somehow right in the two aspects. In the microorganisms one, as I already explained before, and in my prediction of what insect container or collector will collect the more amount as possible of insects, because yes, it collected insect. It doesn't matter that it was only one, because the other dry collectors don't collect any insect. So in that aspect, somehow my hypothesis was right. So this is the ant the insect containers trapped. Is the Pharaoh ant and is 2 millimeters long. This ant can cause us important diseases like salmonella, that is a bacterial disease that affects normally the intestinal apparatus, and some of the symptoms are diarrhea, fever, and abdominal cramps. It also can cause us the streptococcal disease, that is also a bacterial disease caused by the streptococcus bacteria, and is normally treated with normal antibiotics. But in stronger cases, it can cause the scarlet fever, that is a childhood illness that causes red rash, and in the worst cases, pneumonia and sepsis, that is a serious infection of the blood. This because this little ant can contaminate our food and also contaminate our injuries or wounds when we hurt ourselves. So be careful if you see this little ant close to your food or to your injuries. We can prevent the Pharaoh ants by sealing the cracks in our houses, and also by not leaving the dirty dishes in the sink over the night, picking the uneaten pet food, because that can be ant temptations. So be sure to do that to not be in contact with the Pharaoh ants. And the final thing, how would this experiment could be done better? Well, there are two things. The first one is that I think, in my opinion, we need to test the containers, insect containers, in a more long period of time, not only just 1 hour. I think minimum only like 2 nights to see the amount of insects, in not just only 1 hour, because I think, in my opinion, that is a very short time. And the other thing is that I think that the flashlights that I have were not so powerful to attract all the insects. So I think that to have more probabilities to catch insects, I need to have a more powerful flashlight. So that are the two things that can be improved in this experiment. So this is the end of this video and of the experiment. I hope you like it and that you learn something, and see you the next time. Bye.